Amendment's freedom of speech provision is significant because people are able to express their opinions and ideas without government suppression.
First Amendment states, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or the press, or the right of the people peaceably assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances.
The First Amendment of the Constitution protects speech no matter how offensive the content is. The purpose of free speech is to protect the minority and often unpopular viewpoint from being overpowered by the government.
The freedom of speech includes the right to not speak specifically relating to the right to not salute the flag. This was addressed in the West Virginia Board of Education versus Barnett court case in 1940. So what is the freedom of speech? These court cases show what this amendment allows. The First Amendment also allows for students to wear black armbands to protest a war. The court case Tinker versus Des Moines allowed for this in 1969. In 1971, Cone versus California claimed that the freedom of speech allows offensive words to be used to convey political messages. It also allows to engage in symbolic speech stated in Texas versus Johnson. These court cases show what the freedom of speech does not allow. Freedom of speech does not allow for actions that might incite harm to others. This was addressed in Schenck versus United States in 1919. It does not allow for draft cards to be burned, which was addressed in the court case United States versus O'Brien in 1969.
The American Civil Liberties Union supports our opinion that freedom of speech is necessary for a free and fair government. They believe that even the unpopular groups such as the KKK, anti-LGBT, Nazis, and communists must be granted freedom of speech if these rights are given to anyone. If the freedom of speech is given to one, it must be given to everyone. When someone exercises their First Amendment right to free speech, the government is not allowed to shut down the speech just because other people don't like the message that is being conveyed. This is known as the rule against heckler's veto. The American Civil Liberties Union defends freedom of speech because they believe it is the most important right to the American citizens. They defend the most hated groups because it is necessary for them to voice their opinion. In times of war and peace, the American Civil Liberties Union always protects the right granted in the First Amendment. The Free Expression Network is a group of organizations including the National Coalition Against Censorship. They are dedicated to protecting the First Amendment right to free expression and the values it represents. The oppose government to suppress constitutional protected speech. The Free Expression Network is a group of organizations including the National Coalition Against Censorship. They are dedicated to protecting the First Amendment right to free expression and the values it represents. They oppose government efforts to suppress constitutionally protected speech. The National Coalition Against Censorship formed in 1973 as a result of the Supreme Court decision in Miller versus California. For 40 years, they have been engaged in direct advocacy and education to support First Amendment principles. Universities across America limits freedom of speech through speech codes, safe spaces, and tone policing, which surpasses free speech. Until 2016, students at Northern Michigan University were limited to what they could speak about. If they spoke about suicidal or self-destructive thoughts or actions with other students, they could face disciplinary actions.
At a school known for expressing their political views, surprisingly, Free Speech Week at the University of California at Berkeley was canceled this fall semester the day before it was supposed to happen. The action the school took surprised and upset many students. When the school announced that it was hosting right-wing speakers, it fought claims that they did not support free speech. As a result, the left-wing school canceled Free Speech Week. As a protest against the administration policies of Reagan, Gregory Lee Johnson burned an American flag. In the Johnson versus Texas court case, Gregory Johnson was tried and convicted under a Texas law in 1984. He was given a $2,000 fine and sentenced to 1 year in jail. The conviction was reversed by the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals and sent to the Supreme Court. Justice William Brennan wrote for a 5-justice majority stating that the act of burning the flag was protected speech under the First Amendment. However, the government can limit freedom of speech on speech against the government. In the Brandenburg versus Ohio case, it made it illegal for crime, sabotage, violence, or unlawful methods of terrorism as a means of accomplishing industrial or political reform, as well as assembling with any society, group, or assemblage of persons formed to teach or advocate the doctrines of criminal syndicalism.
In conclusion, the free speech debate has been continuously controversial throughout the history of the United States. In many countries, including North Korea, freedom of speech is limited and it's hard to express views. Because of the First Amendment's freedom of speech, citizens are able to freely express their ideas and opinions without the government getting involved. This right is ideal for the U.S. citizens and has become fundamental.